Welcome to the Western Woman Podcast. I'm your host, GABRIELA MILIAN. We'll take you through exhilarating conversations highlighting modern women who have taken the path less traveled towards living authentically and helping others do the same. Western society is an interesting place that has brought innovation for the rest of the world, but sometimes we find our culture struggling in areas that some would argue are more important. Each guest will give a new take on how they've tackled some of these struggles. Kate Griffith is a breathwork, reiki, and sound healing practitioner. Her own healing journey led her to leave a successful career in corporate sales to follow her purpose and passion, to guide others to find a deepened sense of self and empowerment. In February of 2024, the greatest role of her life entered the birth of her son, and this led her to advocating for peaceful birth, mothers' rights, and trusting their bodies. Well, thank you so much to Kate Griffith for joining me. I have been lucky enough to join her for sound healing and Reiki. So I'm glad that you're going to be able to share some of your knowledge today with us here on Western Woman Podcast. So I have to ask everyone first, what is a Western woman to you?
So to me, well, first, I think that in the West, there's this rise that is happening within each and every woman where they are realizing that the way life was, the work hard, play hard mentality, boss babe era, keeping up with the Joneses is no longer serving us. And I think a lot of women are waking up to their power that is within the divine feminine and connecting to their intuition, connecting to really all that they are, their own heart, really living in a state of trust and surrender. And what that looks like to each individual is different. It doesn't mean someone's not working hard and playing hard. But I think that women today in the West are beginning to set their own standards of what happiness looks like, of what success looks like for themselves and for their families. And I am so grateful to be part of that, part of that trend and that rise in the West, and to see it and to hold space for women that are doing the same. And I think that women are really on their healing journey here in the West. And I think that a healed person, heal people, right? And so I think that women today are really healing themselves, which is healing their lineage and future generations as well.
I think that's super powerful. And it's one of those things where I love that we're seeing this transition. I mean, I feel like you and I are a perfect example of people who, were working really hard in our respective careers before and now decided to maybe take a step back, entering motherhood, trying to be as present for our little guys as possible.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of women go through these inner conflicts, especially because we're right outside of New York City. So we're still in this kind of hustle, bustle culture. But I do see women asking themselves more questions. Like, is this really what I want? Is this really aligned with how I want to continue my life and my lifestyle? So for you, what were some of those questions or experiences that you had that you were like, yeah, maybe this hustle was fun at first, but you started realizing you needed to make a transition?
Yeah. So I think for me, when I was on my healing journey, I wanted to hold space for others. So I was juggling holding space for others through breathwork, Reiki, sound healing, and also my 9-to-5. I was in corporate sales for about 13 years. And I just remember the way that it felt when I would have a room full of people in a sound healing event versus the way that it would feel in my corporate job when I would sell, $1 million contract. And it was really that the money that was coming in from that corporate role was, there was no heart behind it. And my heart wasn't there, and it wasn't fulfilling me and my life and my future. And I also remember being really run down. I know that my nervous system was feeling that. And in my healing journey, when I really began to connect to my heart and really just connect to my body in general, I realized how much the corporate space was affecting me physically and how I was feeling and how it was keeping me from being really in flow and in sync with my cycle and with my heart. So I kind of had that now or never moment of, I'm going to be in this role for a really long time in sales, in the corporate space, or, it's time for me to transition and just do it and enter the unknown and just see what happens. In worst case scenario, I go back to the corporate space. But really and truly, it was my nervous system and it was my heart that was guiding me and leading me to the next phase of my life.
Sure. No, that totally makes sense. I kind of feel very similarly, like obviously within my own journey. And I know something you've been very open about on social media, you even had a viral post about it, is sharing your relationship with how you used to view substances before and
Sure.
how you went and changed. So, how did your relationship with, I guess, different substance abuse kind of start?
Yeah.
Why do you think it started? And how did you go about sort of healing that?
Yeah. So my journey to sobriety and my healing journey are kind of one and the same. So I really talk about them together. And I always like to give a disclaimer when I talk about them, that as I talk about them from this side, from my healed version, it sounds very linear. It sounds like I went from point A to point B to point C. However, when you are in it, for anyone who is listening, who is in that journey, who is beginning their healing journey, I know that it doesn't feel that way. And that isn't the truth behind it. When you're on the other side, I promise you can talk about it as if it was linear. However, when you're in it, there's twists and turns and it's heavy and it's hard, but I promise that you can make it to the other side. So I like to give that disclaimer as, again, I talk about it and it sounds very linear. But I moved to South Florida when I was 23 and from Ohio. And so I enter into this whole new world. And there's a nightlife and there's lots of alcohol, there's lots of substances that are around. And really over the years and into my late 20s, it became problematic, my relationship with alcohol, where it was not only one drink, but one drink would lead to an entire bottle of wine. One night out would lead to 7 nights out. And going out would lead to drinking afterwards and drinking alone and to the point of blackout. And so I knew that there was an issue, right? I knew that there was a problem. I just didn't know what it was, but I was really using alcohol to numb. So I didn't have the tools in my tool belt that I have today to center myself, connect to my heart, connect to my body. And ultimately, when I was feeling any emotion, and I feel big emotions, I would reach for alcohol. So I wanted to numb any type of nervousness, anxiety, any shame, anything that I was going through in life. And the part about numbing is that when you're numbing, you're also numbing a lot of the good in life too. So you're numbing a lot of the really beautiful moments. And so I didn't know how to do life without alcohol. And so it wasn't until 2019 I go on a reality TV show. And on this reality TV show, like, you have to watch yourself back. And it was 30 days of drinking intensely because in reality TV, they like to serve you enough alcohol that you're loose, but not enough that you're sloppy.
Sure.
And so I'm watching myself back and I'm like, I don't recognize this girl. And the universe tried to send me some little pings prior to that and situations where it's like, honey, you need to do something. You're not connected to yourself. You're so far off your path. But I guess the universe has a little bit of humor. And so reality TV is where it really got my attention. Again, as I'm watching myself back and I'm realizing, wow, first of all, I know that you were intoxicated this entire time that you were filming this. But I was listening to myself and I could see the pain. I didn't actually recognize myself, but I could see the pain. I could see situations in my life that had happened that had created this version of myself that I'm now watching. And it was the first time that I really got to see myself from above, bird's eye view, and witness myself. But it also led me to probably my lowest low because I realized how off center I was, how addiction had really taken over my life. And 2020 hits, pandemic, we're alone. And I just have this moment where I am like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here if this is my life. And having that realization is tough. And it's either one of two things. You're not here anymore, or you find a way out. And just so happened, I had been following a healer who is in New York City. She specializes in breath work. And I don't even know why I was following her, to be quite honest, because I wasn't really in that realm at that phase of my life. But I was very attracted to her work and her energy. I didn't know a lot about energy at the time, but I was attracted to her energy. And she's hosting a virtual breathwork event. So I'm like, I don't know, let's sign up. Let's see what this is all about. And I remember doing that virtual session. It was the first time that I connected to my heart. It was the first time I really felt my heart. Like, I loved people before that, but like I didn't really know what that connection to heart felt like. Sure. It was the first time that I felt weightless. I felt so heavy for so long, carrying so much and carrying this big secret that I had with alcohol. Because at this point, this is a decade of my life where alcohol is my vice. So I am carrying this heavy, heavy load. And I felt weightless for the first time. I connected to my grandmother who had passed a few years before. And it was just this wild experience that I'm so like forever grateful for, because that started my journey of healing. And in that healing, it also led me to realize, as I was healing myself, as I was more connected, as I was a clearer and cleaner vessel, alcohol really did not sit well with me. So I tried to couple the two and think like, oh, maybe I can have some drinks. But it actually was even worse in my body then, and the way that it was showing up for me, because I was then connected more so to frequency. And so alcohol is a bit of a darker frequency, at least for me particularly. And I could just feel that. The moment I would say yes, the first sip of alcohol that I would have, it was just this heaviness. Again, the secret that I was carrying was in every single sip.
I mean, I love personally Dr. Gabor Mate's work, and something that he says is addiction is probably the most human experience that you can have.
Yeah.
And I think something that you mentioned is how a lot of times people are going to it because they're trying to numb something.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't even know what we're trying to numb because maybe we're so distracted with the responsibilities we have to do, or just, oh, I don't want to deal with that because it seems maybe too dark, you know, when you do maybe face it a little bit. So I'm so grateful for you for sharing this, because I know it's a very vulnerable situation to go through. And just like you said, being able to talk about it on the other side might seem like easy to someone compared to someone who's going through it, who's in the thick of it. But I love how you were able to connect with your body in a different way through breath work in order to kind of get through this. So what was the continuation of wanting to work more with energy instead of maybe working with corporate sales? Was it something that you realized after you started realizing your relationship with alcohol, like, this isn't as aligned, maybe some other things aren't as aligned too? Was that kind of like the catapult? Like you were talking about the breathwork session in particular.
Yeah. So what really happened was, after that first breathwork session, I reached out to this energy worker and I was like, I need to work with you. And I just knew it. Like, this is the first of my intuition also, like, and allowing my intuition to surface. And I was like, I know that I need to work with you. So I started working. Her name's Joy Duche. And I started working with her one-on-one. And we were breathing weekly. So I was having weekly sessions. She was coaching me, and clearer and cleaner, everything started to take place. A lot of my gifts started to surface, a lot of my passions as well. And I'll just tell you this little bit of story about the way that the alcohol sort of exited my life as well. Was that I had started dating my now husband around this time, which is interesting because you're going through your healing journey and you are now allowing someone into your life. And he knew what I was going through. I was very honest with what I was going through, which is, you know, who he is. It was allowing me to hold, and he was holding space for me. I don't think anyone else could have held space for me in that manner, because he's just who he is. But I was very honest with what I was going through in my life. And I knew with alcohol, I needed to tell someone, because again, this secret that I was holding on to, the four walls of every place that I live were just like, they were so heavy. And so I had to tell someone. So I am a bottle, maybe a bottle and a half in of wine. I call my now husband, Anand, and I'm like, are you around? Are you nearby? I would love for you to come over. Poor guy. He probably thought like it was a booty call or something. Like he probably, we're just like newly dating.
He's probably like,
"Ooh,
yeah, let's go.
yeah, this girl wants me to come over right now. It's kind of late at night."
Yeah.
And he comes over and I'm just in tears. And I'm like, I have to tell someone the secret that I've been holding on to for so long. A decade's a long time. And being who he is, he doesn't judge. He doesn't say anything. He just holds me, lets me cry. He dumps the rest of the wine that I had left in the bottle. And he takes all of my wine glasses and wine opener, and he throws it away. He takes it with him, takes it out of my apartment, and he just continuously holds space for me after that. And anyone who's going through this, like, I don't think you can go through it alone. And he was my safe space. And from that point, that day, I don't want to say that it was easy, but actually owning up to what it was that was happening with my life gave me this sense of freedom. So our relationship, my husband and I, my boyfriend at the time, our relationship takes off. All of my like gifts and intuition, I am freer than ever. Like I am way more connected than ever. And so that's what also led me to want to get certified in different healing modalities and energy work, is because I found it out of necessity. But I want to share it with everyone because my belief and the life that it gave me and the freedom that it gave me from this substance and from just my toxic relationship with myself that I had for so many years. So that's how I got into energy work. And then I was doing and still working in my corporate job at that time. But it felt like my corporate job was sort of my like side hustle, because the thing I thought about the most was energy work and working with others. And so eventually it got to the point where I knew like I had to let alcohol go and release that I had to let the corporate space go as well.
Sure. No, that totally makes sense. And something that I want to touch on that I feel like is so beautiful and powerful is, like you said, when you're going through something like this, you need to have someone. You need to be able to share it with someone. And I think a subconscious belief that I had for a long time before getting married was that if I get married, then I lose my freedom. And what you actually sort of said was, actually when you're with the right person, you feel more free.
Sure.
And I feel like your husband was able to hold that space for you in such a beautiful way that you were able to let go of alcohol and other things and start to realize like, oh yeah, and when you have the right person, you actually feel more free than you were before. So that was something that I personally had to go through. And I love how you shared that with your story, because I tell people all the time, especially since I used to help people with relationship coaching, is I promise you, when you're with the right person, you will feel free. It's not that you're not going to go through, trials and tribulations, but there's a sort of, when you're honest with yourself, the right people also come around as well, whether it's a significant other or even friendships as well. So what was kind of the straw that made you leave your corporate job so that you could focus on energy work more?
Yeah. So it's a kind of a silly story, but I had this couch in my then apartment, that had moved with me from Fort Lauderdale to Miami to Brickell, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, Hoboken, and then Jersey City. And one day I was like, I am so sick of this couch. And I didn't realize probably at the time, it was the energy that it carried and all of my secrets. Probably the majority of my wine was like drank on that couch. And so there was just an energy to it. So I called 1-800-JUNK and I was like, get this thing out of my apartment. And when I did, I opened up space in my living room and I was like, I should host a full moon circle for some friends. So I invited some friends over and I had this full moon circle. And it was, again, I felt so natural holding this space. and doing this little sound healing and meditation and a little bit of breath work. And so I got rid of that couch and my living room became my little healing studio. And it was really when I had the realization and kind of my now or never moment. I feel like I've had a lot of now or never moments where I'm like, I need to break this cord right now. But I just realized how much in my life when I let go of something, whether it was alcohol, the couch, the job, like when I let go, there was always good on the other side. And I'm always big at like the universe is sending you clues or pings, pulls in certain directions. So I just knew I was done with the corporate space. And so in the summer of 2022, I let my manager know that I'm going to be parting ways and focusing on, the healing space. And any other job, like they give you a 2 weeks notice, or you're giving them a 2 weeks notice. And my manager was like, Kate, how long can we keep you? And I was like, you can keep me for a couple more months. So I think I quit technically in the summer, but I stayed until September, which gave me more runway. So throughout this time, like I knew that the healing space was for me. How I know, I don't know. I guess it's listening to the body, right? It's listening to the heart. And so I just knew. And so I started to create the runway of time, of finances, and programs that I was going to be offering and coaching and setting up these full moon and new moon circles and events. And so I started doing that. And it was just, I don't want to say that it was an easy transition because I think I was also saying goodbye to a part of myself that I had known for so long. I think also there was a stress that I always had when I was in the corporate space of numbers and hitting quotas and goals for the year that almost followed me into the healing space where I really had to learn to center myself and really be in this state of trust that I was in the right space and that it was all going to come, and had to really hone in on what I believe the Western woman is becoming. And that intuitive feminine nature, being in flow and really just surrendering and trusting the universe is going to provide. Right. And so there was a little bit of life lesson that I had there in 2022 when leaving the corporate space and jumping into something of my own.
No, I totally feel that. Like it's one of those things that a lot of these decisions can seem very scary or not even rational. Also, like you were saying, like financially, how are we going to do this? Or, all this type of, but yet when you do finally let go, it usually always works out. I actually, now that I think about it, every time that I've really let go of something, it always worked out. Not that it always worked out for the better. Yeah. But like you were saying that the Western woman, they're going through this healing journey. So as an energy worker, when women come to you, what do you feel like are the common struggles that they're trying to work through that you're helping them through the energy work that you do?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest is just the block within the heart and really, really being connected to. I think we say, being heart-centered, heart-based, but I don't think that everyone knows what that means. And I certainly didn't. And so it's really finding the way to release a lot of the emotions and energy that is blocking. And that might be through forgiveness of self, compassion. But it's really just unlocking that ability to connect to the body. Sure. I don't think, and that's what breathwork is amazing at, is allowing you to really connect to the body. Because our body always has the answers. Our body can tell us so much. We are just so accustomed to not listening or just being too busy to listen to the body. Yeah. So that's where I come in and help women to really center themselves in the heart and trust in the body.
No, it's so true, especially breath work. I love breath work in particular. I've been lucky enough to do that with you. I believe in a new moon circle that you had at Om Life, your business with you and your husband. And I know that I think it's very easy to discount the breath because we breathe every day. We're not thinking about it. There's very shallow breathing, on day to day. I'm probably not breathing properly as we speak, but it's literally what makes us alive. Like if you're not breathing, you're not alive. And I think there's even a passage in the Bible that says, once God gave us breath, he gave us life. And I feel like it's something that I've even seen in other belief systems, that it's brought me so much more in tune with my body. And I feel like once other women in particular, because I feel that women, we actually have a stronger connection to our body, especially because of motherhood, because of a lot of other experiences that we go through that men don't. But because of the modern society, we're so distracted that we're so disconnected. So how do you feel that disconnection from the heart, from the body, how does that manifest in real life, on day to day? How do you see that with women in their day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think that it just being disconnected, you start to make decisions from that place. You start to speak from that place. You start to manifest everything that we're doing in every single moment is manifesting our future. So you're manifesting from that disconnected place. So I think a lot of women get so deep in life and they're wondering why things are working the way that they're working, why things are happening in the way that they are, and they're not falling into place without taking a step back to say, well, am I connected to my heart? Is the goal and the thing that I'm going after actually what I want, or what I've been programmed to believe that I want, or that I've seen someone else have in their life, and now that's the goal that I'm reaching towards, rather than, is this actually for me? And so I think that's a lot of what's happening is, again, the keeping up with the Joneses. And I think that that's where a lot of women are waking up and just saying, okay, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a beat. I'm going to take a breath and ask myself, what is it that I actually want? And what does happiness look like? And I think when we do that and we actually ask ourselves, which sounds like easy questions, but they're tough questions when you actually dive in really deep to your why. And so then when you begin to unlock that connection to the body and to the heart, your body and your heart will never lead you in the wrong direction. There might be some hiccups still along the way, but then you really start to have the realization of what it is that you want. So I think that disconnected place is just manifesting in different ways for women. And then they're looking in the mirror saying, this isn't the life that I wanted, or I thought that or even if they do have everything. I know so many people that seem like they have it all from the outside, but they're still unhappy.
Sure.
And I think that's why.
It's true. I actually used to talk about this a lot in my archetypes program. I would use Sex and the City as like an example because I feel like the cast is like a perfect example of each of these updated archetypes that I work with. And I feel like a lot of people would really look up to Samantha just because she seemed like, but I don't think they really understood why they connected with her as much, because she's the boss babe. She has her own business. She lives her life more like a man, society would say. And I feel like women associated themselves to her because they thought that she didn't get hurt as much as the rest of the cast. But if you really listen to some of the conversations when she's going through tough times, there's a lot of insecurity there. There's a lot. And of course, it's a show. It's not real life. But there is a lot of psychology kind of behind it. And I feel like that happens, especially, being someone from New York City and working in New York City for a long time and other major cities in the country. I mean, you were in Miami and now right outside of New York City in Jersey City. And I feel like a lot of these women, they go for these external accolades, thinking that they're going to feel amazing. Maybe they have a good feeling at first. And then when they kind of look, kind of zoom out a little bit on their life, they're like, oh, this doesn't feel the way I thought it would. And I know personally, I had a lot of those inner conflicts, and I'm sure you did as well, deciding to become a stay-at-home mom. And what's interesting is I remember early on dating with my husband, him asking me like where I saw my future personally. And I remember being afraid to tell him that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom because he met me when I was in my boss babe, hustle culture era. So I was thinking, oh, that's the type of woman he fell in love with. now he's going to think I'm lazy and boring, and God forbid I'm lazy and boring, especially boring. I don't want to be boring. So I remember being afraid to even tell him. Yeah. Then even after getting married, starting my own businesses, and still having this inner conflict of, oh, wait, now these businesses are actually kind of like pretty successful. I don't want to let other people down. Should I stay home? Should I? So it kind of like transitioned like, oh, I don't really know. And then once I started doing a little bit more energy work, trying to connect to myself more, I'll be honest, plant medicine was a part of that journey as well. And realizing, no, this is what you're meant to do, like to stay home. Of course, there will be opportunities for you to share your gifts in other ways, but it was a big inner conflict when I was approaching that time where we were going to try to get pregnant and everything. Like, do I sell my business? Do I not? What should I do? And I feel like a lot of people deep down inside, maybe they've been so distracted that they need to do some of that shedding in order to connect to what they really want. But deep down inside, you know what you really want. Right. And I think it's usually outside distractions or influences that push you down a certain direction. So I know you would now consider yourself to be a stay-at-home mom. You still do events here and there. But what was the transition? I mean, you've had already a lot of different transitions from being pretty much full-time in energy work to now, I think I want to be, stay at home with my little guy more. So what was that what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So when we got pregnant, I didn't know that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. So unlike you, you knew that that's what you wanted. I didn't. I thought I was going to go back to work. I really and truly did. And I remember even like posting on social media, available spots. My son was born in February. Available spots starting in like May of 2024. And thinking like I was going to go back to coaching and energy work, and we would hire someone to come to the house. And no, I couldn't. Once I had him, once I met my son, like truly, once I met him, like I knew I couldn't hand him off to anyone. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I just wanted to be a mother so badly that I just want to be in it with him. Like I want his childhood and my motherhood and my journey to be one and the same. And I just want to be in it with him in every stage that he's going through. And so my husband and I had a lot of conversations around what that was going to look like. And he was all for me staying at home. He never really voiced that.
Sure.
But he was completely fine with that.
Sure. I guess he didn't want to influence you any type of way. He wanted it to come from you. That makes sense.
To make sure it was right for me.
Sure.
And, now my son is 13 months old. I can't imagine anything else. I still keep my passions and my purpose alive by hosting events in the evening. And I have had a few like one-off clients here and there. I'm always available to anyone that needs anything. I'll get back to it again one day. But really and truly, it's just the once I met my son, I knew just being home with him is where I was meant to be. Again, like you mentioned, like we know, we just don't always listen to it. Like I knew I needed to get rid of alcohol in my life. I just didn't listen. I knew that I needed to leave the corporate space. I probably didn't do it soon enough, right? And I knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mama. I just didn't know until I met him.
Sure. No, most definitely. I feel like when I meet other moms, and this isn't to discount anyone else's experience, because it could be it's a very sensitive topic, especially because the majority of people in our culture of moms do go back to work.
Yeah.
And I felt more recently, probably years ago, I felt like there were a lot of women that I met that were just working 9-to-5 jobs. They weren't very passionate about it. So maybe making the decision to stay home, they didn't feel like they were leaving anything. But more moms that I was meeting, they were like, oh, like while they were pregnant, I'm excited to go back to work. Like, oh, I love my job. I'm very passionate about it. And these women did seem very fulfilled. And then as soon as the baby was born, they're like, Gabby, I'm not ready to go back.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I feel like most of my friends had about 6 months maternity leave. And once the 6 months started approaching, they were like, no, I can't. What do you mean? Like, it was very, very hard. And a lot of women make that decision to go back to work. I think it's usually a lot of financial pressures, mostly, which I totally understand. And there's even this pressure of not losing themselves. And I understand, because I feel like being a stay-at-home mom in the US can be very lonely. So I know women who were stay-at-home moms and they were itching to get back to work because that was really their only form of like socialization or all these types of things. And I remember kind of feeling a certain way, like feeling very lonely in the beginning stages of motherhood. And then traveling to Turkey with my 6-month-old. And I went to the park and it was full of kids and their moms. And kind of a deal. And I was just like, oh, wow, yeah. And some of them spoke English, so I was able to speak to some of them. Like, I go up to random people all the time and start talking to them. And I was talking to them about some of the struggles that we deal with, because even though this was mostly in Istanbul that I went to the park with my little guy, we went to some other places, but Istanbul's a major city. I think it was actually the #1 city to travel to in 2024. I think my husband sent me like a stat or an article about it. And so it's still a major city, but there's certain things, and it's actually the western part of Turkey. So it's considered the EU. So it's still very Western in a lot of ways. But there's certain systems in place where, yeah, some women work, but they have enough like maternity leave for like 18 months, sometimes up to 3 years in some of these countries. So they feel like they're able to make those important stages and be there for their for their little girl or boy. And then once they're starting to go to school, they're like, oh, okay, I could do my own thing. Like, there wasn't this sort of like pressure. And I did ask them, like, oh, do you feel lonely? And they were like, why? A lot of them actually live in homes with their families, like extended family as well. So there was one woman telling me like, oh yeah, like we live in this house and my husband and we live downstairs. My parents live in the apartment upstairs. My sister and her husband live all the way, so it's a different type of culture, which I'm not saying that everybody needs to adhere to that, but I started seeing where family values were a little bit more important to Eastern society compared to here in the West. And it's one of those things where a lot of the modalities that you use have a very Eastern influence. How do you feel that more of the Eastern belief systems have influenced your life and the way that you look at even raising your son?
Yeah, and I think having a baby, you go through one of the biggest perspective shifts of your life. So, I want to raise him to be connected to himself and to be nourished, mind, body, and spirit. And I think the only way that you can do that is if you can connect to your own self. So a lot of those Eastern modalities and ways of being, I have to be for him. I don't have to be, but I want to be for him to pick up on. And so, I always say at a minimum, I have to keep him safe, secure, and nourished. But I want to keep him safe in who it is that he is, in his authenticity and his spirit, secure in all that he offers the world, and nourish mind, body, and soul. And so I have to be all of those things so that he can see that, so that he can pick up on. Because right now I can't teach those things, but he can see it and he can feel that. And so a lot of those Eastern ways of being, and I really do think that there is a difference in, and I read a lot about it and I researched a lot about it. Although I already knew my decision to stay home with him was right. But I hear how important those first 3 years are, which, as you mentioned, are really common in the East. And so it's time I can't get back with him. One of my biggest perspective shifts when becoming a mama is on time. And I know that this is that time that we cannot get back. And this first year went by so, so fast. So for me, I know that I have to show him by walking the walk, not just talking it. And really and truly just, again, being in it with him.
Sure. No, most definitely. And I feel like our kids, they feel it too. It's one of those things one of my mentors, when I was getting more into psychoanalysis and hypnotherapy and things, we were talking about just the ancestral significance of our parents and how really, especially our mothers, the relationship we have with our mothers, or even how we see our mothers, is how we look at ourselves. And the relationship we have with our fathers, or how we see our fathers, is how we look at the outside world.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like it also had me change my perspective becoming a mom on my own mom as well. And also, you know, giving her more grace and understanding in different ways that I probably didn't before. And just realizing that, yeah, if I'm able to just truly live as authentically as possible, that my son is going to mirror that. He's going to pick up on that. He's going to see all of these different types of changes. So I know something that you've talked about as well, we connected through this, is also going through a peaceful and natural birth.
Yeah.
And what was your decision kind of going down that route? Because the majority of women that I talked to, they didn't decide to go the route that we did when delivering our babies, and even preparing for that. So what was kind of your decision going into that when you first got pregnant? Did you know 100% you wanted to work with midwives or an OB? How did you make that decision?
Yeah. So, you know, I'll first also state that it took my husband and I about 2 years to conceive.
Sure.
So it did take us a little bit of time. So we had a lot of time to sort of hash this out. And when we got pregnant, we originally were working with an OB and just felt, as much as we loved this practice and those that worked with us within, it just didn't feel right. Every single time that we were in there for our appointments, I felt like my questions were sort of silly, but you know, you're doing this for the first time. And I felt like a lot of my questions were somewhat dismissed. And one of the questions that was really dismissed was if they knew what their C-section rate was with the doctor. And I'd never met the doctor. You know, I was always working with the nurse practitioner. Never met the doctor that was potentially going to deliver our baby. And they dismissed that question when I asked what the C-section rate was. It was just, it was, well, only if necessary does that happen. I'm just asking what the rate is, if you know what it is. And so a friend of mine had worked with midwives, and I heard her birth story, and I was like, this feels so right. This feels really good. So I talked to my husband about it, and we were like, let's meet with the midwives and let's see what this is about. I'm already in my 3rd trimester at this point, like at the beginning of the 3rd trimester.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so we meet with them, and it's an hour-long appointment in this cozy space that felt like home. And they answer any question that I ask. Right. It felt like home. They felt like, you know, they felt like mamas to me. And so we just left, and we were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Then we had to decide if we wanted to do a home birth with them or a hospital birth, or sort of the happy medium of the two, which was the birthing center. And my husband and I knew we didn't want any medication, if at all possible. I wanted to have it all natural, which I don't know if you know, like all natural, when we say that, not everyone sometimes assumes that just means vaginal, but like all natural, like nothing in my system.
No medication, nothing. Yeah.
Absolutely
yeah,
nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, we decided to go with the birthing center. We had a doula that we work with as well. And I know deep in my heart, like that was the right decision for us. It was a really beautiful experience. And I also commend you. I know that you had a similar where you gave birth in the same room.
In the same room at the birthing center. Yeah.
But, you know, I appreciate that you voiced that, because you had your baby a couple months before ours.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And so I remember seeing a photo of you at the birthing center, and I would really just harness the energy of those that were giving birth at the birthing center of like, I know she did it. I can do it. So thank you for sharing your journey in that regard, because I really And truly, as I was getting to the, closer to my baby's due date, I was just sitting in that energy that I can do this.
Sure.
I can do this without any medication at the birthing center, with the midwives, with our doula. And so for any of the women that shared their journey in that regard, it really gave me the energy that I needed to know that I could do it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we chose that because we felt that that was the safest route for our family.
Sure.
We hear a lot about medical intervention, and it just felt right to do without that.
Sure. No, I totally feel you. Actually, a friend of mine recently, she's pregnant, and she was kind of thinking about which ways she was going to go. I think she's going to do a hospital birth, but she's working with midwives just because that's more convenient for her situation. And she was like, yeah, I chose to work with midwives because she's like, I realized birth is a natural occurrence. It's not a medical procedure, unless it needs to be. Of course, there are situations that it does need to be. But she was like, she was telling me through her perspective, I feel like because women go into it already looking at it as a medical procedure because of the hospital, because of the types of doctors, that completely kind of subconsciously takes out having a natural birth off the table, which when I talk to the majority of women that I talk to tell me that they want a natural birth.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they realize that there's a lot of subconscious programming that can happen when you're only hearing one narrative and when you're not getting multiple perspectives. And actually what I loved about the midwives that we worked with was there's 7 of them. So you meet with each one of them before you give birth, of course, but you hear all of the perspectives. They all had a little bit of a different, sauce to kind of throw in, which I loved, which was very interesting. And being a new mom, I felt like it was so valuable because to hear all of these different perspectives, also that we're obviously leaning towards having a natural birth, but also something that we were talking about when it comes to Western society is there's a lot of conveniences in Western society, a lot of comforts, which is great. I'm sure we both, profit from these comforts and we get to benefit from them. But something my husband and I talk about a lot is that when everything's comfortable and convenient, you can sort of rely on that and not rely on your own strengths and power and being able to overcome uncomfortable situations. Because I don't like to say that life is hard or complicated, but it's definitely uncomfortable. And uncomfortable situations are going to come up all of the time. And I feel like with giving birth, a lot of people, we talk about the pain. Obviously, there's pain. It's a part of the process. Thankfully, I don't really remember it as much, which I think is a part of our design so that we have more. But it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of women are afraid of pain because of the conveniences and the comforts that we have to take away a lot of the pains that we have in everyday life. And something that even though I was going through that pain of labor, contractions, everything that's happening, I've never felt so in tune with my body, ever. Like my body was speaking for me in so many different ways. So I love hearing people's birth stories. And what was that experience like for you? Like you knew that you didn't want to have any medication or intervention going into it, but was there still sort of this feeling of, oh, maybe, because they did offer laughing gas at the birthing center. Like, oh, should I take that kind of a deal? Actually, I think I did think about it, but I got to the birthing center too late, so I didn't do it. But what were kind of, for you, during labor and contractions? Because I felt it was such a spiritual experience at the same time. Also, because there's no intervention, your senses are so heightened. Like the things, I was able to hear things on the other side of the birthing center where I was thinking to myself, thank God I didn't give birth at a hospital because it just would have been like beep, 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 beep. That probably would have totally overwhelmed me. But what was that experience like for you, like while you were going through it?
Yeah. So I almost feel as if there were multiple versions of myself when I was going through that. So my labor was about 52 hours. So it's pretty long. But I remember my body was one version of self, feeling the pain.
Sure.
But then there was like my higher self was there overseeing, we labored at home for the majority of the time and then went to the birthing center, but kind of overseeing the situation, almost reminding me like everything is fine, everyone is fine, because I'm also someone who likes to make sure everyone in the room is comfortable and feels good. So there was that version that was like, everyone feels good. The midwives aren't nervous. The doula's not nervous. Everyone is good. Hubby's not nervous. Everyone's great. So there was that version.
Sure.
And then I think there was this version that was really like holding my baby.
Mm.
I remember like holding him before I was holding him, if that makes sense. There was a version of self. And there's a saying like the woman goes to the stars to retrieve their baby and then comes back. And I felt like there was a version of self that was with him and knew he was okay. So like all three of those versions were there of self. And so they're all wrapped into one. And I even remember when he was born and I birthed on like all fours on a bed. And so when I flipped over to then hold my baby, I remember thinking there were less people in the room than I thought. And I think it was because there were so many versions of myself that were taking part in this experience.
Sure.
And the pain, of course, was a lot. But nothing compares to the pain that I experienced in my life emotionally prior to that, that I had healed from or that I had moved on from and had so much freedom. So I almost feel like there was a part of me that needed to feel all of that and let all of that go to be even more of a mother to my son. And I know that may sound silly, like wanting that pain, but I almost needed to feel the physical in order to release so much of what I had already released emotionally and really let go of to be the best version for him. So that's sort of my story and how he came into the world.
Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful story. And you share it on social media as well. But it's one of those things where I love hearing other women's experience and I love being able to share it like with others because I think a lot of women go into it very nervous, very, this unknown, yet it's the most natural practice in human existence. Like it's been a part of us since the beginning of time. So it's one of those things I'm glad that you mentioned as far as that pain wasn't anywhere near the emotional pain that you went through. And I feel like when people are able to get through tough situations, or even on a smaller level, I wanted to highlight how, at Om Life, you're using the sauna and doing cold plunges regularly and those types of things. Yes, of course, they have physical benefits, but doing something hard and uncomfortable daily or routinely also makes you more confident in being able to tackle those scary things. And I feel like that's part of the reason why certain practices like that are so important, especially in Western society, if you're living in the modern world, because we have so many comforts and conveniences. And for you in particular, when you are talking to women to try to get them more connected to themselves, what are maybe some of the questions that you ask, or what are things that you try to dive into with other women so that they can get more connected when they feel disconnected from themselves?
Yeah. I always envision like a little kid that's asking questions like, why? Why, mama? Why?
Sure.
Because a lot of my questions are just why? Like, why is that? Why is this what you want for your life? Do you really? Is that what your heart? Like, what are you craving? I oftentimes ask like what someone is craving and what does that actually feel like? So when we can get clear on the emotions and that we want to feel, like, how do you want to feel? It's not like, I want to be a billionaire. It's like, how does being a billionaire make you feel?
Yeah, sure.
How does it make you feel to be a mama? Why do you want to be a mama? Why do you want a husband? Why do you want love? Whatever it is that they're looking for is, why do you want that? And how are you going to feel?
Sure.
And how can you show it for yourself more so in that way today before having that? Because you can feel all those emotions. You can trigger all of those. You can let those emotions into your life now It might not be in the same manner, but to get your body used to feeling that. And then when you get yourself used to feeling that, then you can really attract a lot of that into your life. So my biggest question is a lot of the times just why?
Right. Yeah.
Why? I know it sounds silly and it sounds simple. I think we like to confuse things here. Like you mentioned, we like to make things easy in certain manner. I think we also like to make things hard. We like to make the healing journey harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a lot of simplicity to it if we allow that and if we actually listen to ourselves. And I'm someone who is coming from a place where I didn't listen to myself for so long. So I know the repercussions of not listening to oneself or what I really needed.
Right.
So I think that that is something that it's really can be pretty simple, but it takes the safety and the trust in oneself to allow yourself to actually state what it is that you want, how it is that you want to feel. Because we've got so used to wearing the masks.
Yeah. And some of these masks are comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, they're comfortable. And I understand. I mean, even though I'm someone who likes to think I've shed a lot of masks, I'm sure there's still certain masks that I wear, you know, just to live in this society. But I think what you're saying in particular, the feeling, I feel like a lot of women were so caught up in the rational mind of, oh, the responsibilities, I have to take care of this. A lot of women, whether they have children or not, are usually responsible of other people, of taking care of other people in their family or friend group, et cetera. And they get caught up in the, oh, I have all these responsibilities, but okay, can you put that to the side to see how that actually feels? Like, are these responsibilities fulfilling to you? Are these responsibilities lighting you up in certain ways and giving you energy? But the majority of the time, it's draining a lot of their energy. And they don't recognize, like, oh, why do I feel this way? Like, I'm doing everything by the book.
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't it feel as rewarding or fulfilling as I thought it would? And it's because, honey, you're an individual, you know? Like, it's one of those things where, yes, we can all relate to one another through our similar experiences, but we still have our own unique path. I tell women all the time, I feel like I've met 50 different versions of myself in this life through other women, but they have slightly different things. They have a different background. They had their own journey in different ways. And it's not to discount your journey or their journey. It's just to realize, oh, you know what? They're going on a different path. And also not to compare yourself too. I think it could be very easy to, oh, I have certain similarities with this person. I should be doing the same things as them, or vice versa. Oh, why aren't they doing the things that I'm doing? Sometimes people feel that way too, but it's the feeling. And I feel like we are so disconnected from our feelings. I think women think that they're, oh, because I'm a woman, I'm connected to my feelings, like more so than men in my life, maybe. And that might be the case, but I think part of our patriarchal society is women are still trying to fit into a mold that wasn't created for us. And I also feel like that's part of the disconnect with not going after what they really want, or even going after what they really want in the way they want to go about it, because the journey is just as important. So I did want to ask, where can people find you on social media and all of your links and things? Because I would love for people to continue the conversation with you outside of here.
Yes, of course. So on Instagram, it's at I am Kate Griffith. My website is iamkategriffith.com. I made it all pretty streamlined and easy. And same thing, I have a few meditations on YouTube, and the YouTube channel is also I am Kate Griffith.
And go to her events at Om Life as well in Jersey City.
That.
Yeah, no, I love all of your events. I think the reason why I haven't been going to more, because it's right around bedtime for little man.
Of
so
course,
eventually, once we get that figured out, we'll be going to more of your events.
Yes. And I host them right at bedtime because I don't want to miss out on anything.
Exactly. No, I totally get it. So that's why I'm like, I don't want to miss anything. So I haven't been going to the events, but I totally get wanting to be as present with your little guy as possible. So let's go back to our little guys now.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.